Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have a friend of mine, Craig Steele of Exclusive Pursuit Outfitters. Craig, how you doing?
Good, Jay. How you doing, bud?
Good. I'm catching you right at the end of elk season. It looks like you guys across the board had a pretty darn good season compared to a lot of guys. How was it out there?
Man, it was. We got one more hunt to finish up the early season. It was tough, but for us, it was actually pretty successful. It didn't feel like that kind of going through it. The rut was definitely spotty and not consistent, and breakage, and definitely saw the effects of the drought that we had this winter and spring on a lot of the bulls. But as far as our camp goes, we had a pretty darn successful hunt season. I mean, we didn't have any wound loss, in the archery season. No miss. We actually had not zero missed shots, which is, man, that really adds up, and I think we killed out of, I like to classify, since all the other, not all, I shouldn't say that, but since there's a lot of outfitters out there that classify all their friends and buddies as clients, I kind of like to distinguish ourselves. I think we had, 6 or 7 hunters in camp between the early rifle and archery season, and then we had a couple hunts through Hunt for Heroes, which are, veterans. And then we had one, Jimmy Hoffman, his son JD, had an early rifle tag. But I think we took 8 out of the 9. Took bulls from, we killed with one of the Hunt for Heroes guys. We killed a kind of a younger 6-point, and then pretty much everything else from that was 340 to 372, which on a year like this was it was exceptional. Didn't see too many bulls I actually didn't see a bull that I thought would break 380. So I can't complain. We can't complain. Had a really good season for the conditions. So
yeah, it looks like it on your Instagram. Want to encourage the listeners to check out exclusive_pursuit_outfitters. If you haven't already, follow them. Check it out. I want to back up a second, Craig, and go back to the antelope hunts, which were prior to the elk season, and then we'll kind of dive back into the elk. What was your thoughts going into the antelope season? What were the conditions like, and how did those conditions carry out throughout the season, and how did your season go?
I'm actually headed up to do a antelope hunt right now, one of the later seasons. 7 and 9 have the later seasons. But as far as the majority of the rifle, we didn't have any archery hunters. A lot of guys that draw archery go DIY. Occasionally we'll get some archery hunters, but we didn't have any archery hunters. We had a Unit 10 client, really great guy. Ended up, we were hunting a buck that a couple other well-known outfitters were hunting, and we were fortunate to get the buck. There wasn't, it was a little bit depressing as far as from scouting standpoint. Just very few fawns. Supposedly what I hear, the rumor is that Unit 10 had a fawn count of 20 fawns to every 100 does. Some of the other units had below 10 fawns, below 5 fawns, just whether it be they aborted or the drought or coyotes. So that's going to have a very negative impact, or should, on the antelope tags. Just didn't see very many quality bucks. Just age class, in my opinion, seems to be skimmed. We're of the opinion between Lee and I and Jimmy that bucks need to get 4 to 6 years old to be absolutely mature, and just not a lot of bucks are reaching that mark. And then with the fawn recruitment and everything, I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but it's not good. It's hard as hell to kill a buck that's over 82 to 85 inches, let alone the 90 inches that everybody seems to dream and hope for. They're just very few and far between. So our client was awesome. We killed a really solid buck. He had a little body. He was a little over 82 inches. And, so that was the kind of our antelope hunt. I'm getting ready to finish it up with a hunt up here in one of these other later units. And do
you feel like the fish, the wildlife managers for those units, do you feel like they're going to make an adjustment in tag numbers with the foreseeable future being a little bit bleak with the fawn recruitment? I mean, what's your thoughts? Do you know, are they aware of it? Have you talked to any of them? What are your thoughts?
Just that topic as far as what the numbers are going to be, I think that they're probably pretty tight-lipped. And I think the thing about the wildlife managers is just because they work for a government agency, and they're first on the ground out there, doesn't mean that their opinions are always going to trump the politics and, revenue of, or the need for revenue, unfortunately, I personally think they're going to need to cut the tags tremendously, and they're going to have to raise prices. That's the only way the economics of it work out, and unfortunately, we'll find out if the, commission and the, powers to be will allow that to take place. So,
yeah.
But that's what needs to happen, in my opinion.
Moving into elk season, you guys, most of your hunts were in Unit 10. What were, talking early on before the archery hunt, what were conditions, when you were doing your scouting, the week or two up until the season, what were conditions, how did the, country look, and what were the elk doing early on? Were they going crazy? Were they quiet? What, how was it looking before the archery hunt started?
It was, going back into like summer scouting and stuff, we're always watching the radar, looking for the precipitation, seeing what kind of levels we're getting and size of storms. In my opinion, we got some good July rains that got a lot of catch water, and a lot of the catch tanks or dirt tanks had a lot of runoff, but it rained really hard. And then after that, it was kind of sporadic. And the thunderstorms, monsoon thunderstorms, or the monsoon thunderstorms were not very big. Like the cells weren't very big, so it was just kind of sporadic. You have some places that they had catch water, but the feed wasn't good. And then you'd go 2 miles and you have an area for 4 or 5 miles that the feed was really good, and then it kind of like petered out. The monsoon kind of petered out, in my opinion, toward the end of August. It didn't, finish strong. And it just, everything going into like Labor Day and stuff, it just seemed slow, the areas of green up were small, and it seemed like that the elk densities were small too. Like you'd have a small bunch over here and a small bunch over there. They were definitely around the green up areas. I think because the green up wasn't spread out so vast, and they had so much, weight to try to put on and try to catch up that it kind of changed the dynamics of things. I think, when you get a good widespread early monsoon season, it just makes everything lush. I think that the elk get, a little bit more comfortable in where they want to be and where they want to rut. And I think those bulls tend to wander a little bit more. And this is just, an assumption or theory, but it seemed like they were behind for sure, which we kind of expected by the precipitation and by the spring that we had. And we were just happy to have some catch water and some green feed to actually, for the animals' sake. We started hearing bugles around the 1st of September, but nothing strong. Obviously, it seemed like it was those 4.5, 5-year-old bulls. Going into right before the first week of the hunt, some of the bigger bulls that we saw weren't even interested in cows. A lot of 340 to 370 type bulls with a little bit of hanging velvet on the back. They're being super lazy. It seemed like the bigger mature bulls were maybe around the other elk, but just not really interested. They definitely, I think their past experience had kind of, I don't know, gave them the experience to kind of hang out and wait. Seemed like the bigger bulls were waiting for a cow to come and heat versus, wasting all that energy, dancing with the cows. A lot of 4.5, 5-year-old bulls that were bugling pretty good were kind of with the cows and trying to keep them together. And a lot of those older bulls seemed like they were just being real lazy. And that's kind of, leading up to the first week and into the first week of the hunt. It definitely was one of those things where we thought we had a wild hare that we hoped that it was going to get better, and they were just going to get ripping towards the second week. But in the back of our mind, Lee and I talked, and Jimmy talked, and we'd all been, through this before. We kind of had the gut feeling that it wasn't going to ever be a peak, It was just going to be it was almost like just little flare-ups over here. Cow would come in, and they'd get to ripping, and then that afternoon they'd shut her down, And then in some areas where we had some more elk, it definitely seemed like those younger bulls were a little bit more active. Going on toward the latter of the first week, we started seeing breakage, The bulls we killed definitely were, Jimmy, I think the third day he found the back end of a 320 6-point, and he handed it to us, and he's like, "Feel that?" And it was light and fluffy, no density at all to it. There were definitely bulls lost mass and their back end. A couple of the bulls we took, we'd seen previous years. One bull with big split third. Last year we had a hunter miss that bull, and looking at the pictures and video from him last year compared to this year, we thought he was 385 plus now last year, especially since we got to lay a tape on him this year and kind of compare. And this year he was 372. He had a broken G1, which is minor. He broke it the day before we killed him. But considering he wasn't missing a main beam and 3 or 4 points, that was a plus. I think a lot of guys they're living in a little bit of a pipe dream where they don't understand, and you've been there. They don't understand that a lot of these elk will start especially I think the bull-to-cow ratio is coming up in 10, and a lot of these bulls, especially on a drought year, they will start snapping horns left and right. It's nothing worse and nothing more sickening as a hunter and as a guide to watch bulls just shred.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not just one or two. It's almost inevitable. You know, it's and you know, we were fortunate this year. The one guy that didn't kill was a great guy, and he's hunted with us before, and he knew it. You know, he was just looking for a special bull, and you know, we had some bulls that we tried to get on, and we had one bull break and right before he had to go home. But he was the only one that kind of had the higher expectations, and he knew it was going to be tough. Our other guys, thankfully, you know, they had a little bit lower expectations, and you know, we were able to meet that. You know, and I know I told you before the hunt, we were still hoping to kill bulls around 350, you know, and we were pretty fortunate. Some of the bulls, 3 of the bulls we only took 2 bulls, well, 3 bulls, but we took 2 bulls that probably could be, you know, that were probably 5.5, 6 years old, that in 2 or 3 more years could be just with the right feed conditions, could have been absolute, you know, 380 plus, just beast bulls, which, you know, sucks, but it's just part of the game on draw hunts. But 3 of the bulls we took were 8.5 plus, and that is cool. You know,
yeah,
that's what you know, what you freaking hope for and what you dream of. I'm hoping next year, I'm hoping we get some storms lined up. They were calling for 1 to 4 inches with this deal, and it looked like it hit Phoenix and Yuma with this hurricane moisture that came up, and it looked like it hit Payson, stuff like that, but it did not hit 10 and 9 very well. 9 got a little bit of it, 7 got a little bit of it, but 10 didn't get any of it. Yeah, no, so it was good, Jay. I mean, all things considering, you know, I think we sat water on 2 bulls. Those were with the Hunt for Hero guys. We stalked 1 bull. We slipped around 1 bull in a drainage and just waited for him to feed by us. We called in 1 bull as far as archery hunts go. So that's kind of, you know, how we ended up getting our bulls taken. So you need to use all the tools in the chest you could use this year. You know, it definitely wasn't a year.
Right.
You could just, you know, jump in and go, you know, and hope to, you know, catch up to rutting bull or calling a bull. There was, you know, opportunities kind of early where I think some of the bulls were, you know, it was almost like they were hoping, and you'd catch a bull coming across an opening, just, you know, you could tell he was dang sure looking for other elk to get in front of him. That's how we ended up taking that 1 bull. I think he was 350 and 2/8. We called him in. He was just cruising, you know. But not many opportunities for that on the bigger bulls. Younger bulls, a lot of, you know, big 5 points and a lot of 280 to 320, 330 bulls that were going fairly decent. So
I want to take just a second here and thank the sponsors of the podcast. I want to thank the listeners for supporting those sponsors. I want to thank GoHunt.com. Cody Nelson is the new optics manager over there at the GoHunt.com gear shop. You can call Cody directly for any information or sales if you're looking for binoculars, rifle scopes, spotting scopes, tripods, anything optically related. You can reach him at 702-847-8747. That's extension 2. Or email him at optics@gohunt.com. Cody has promised me that he's going to take care of the J. Scott Outdoors listeners. So if you're in the market for any new optics, give Cody a call. I want to thank Go Hunt for their sponsorship. I also want to thank Kuiu.com. That's Kuiu.com. That's the gear that I wear on all my hunts. I want to thank Kuiu for their sponsorship, and Canyon Coolers. If you guys are in the market for a new cooler, go to canyoncoolers.com, use the JScott promo code, and you're going to get a 10% discount on all orders. Craig, how was the ranch? I know you guys have some great private property in Unit 10. How was the ranch conditions compared to some of the public land or some of the more accessible land as far as feed conditions? And then how did that play out with you as far as, did the bulls pile on you guys, cows pile on you guys pretty good, or was it just an average year where, there's elks kind of spread out all over?
It was actually a year that probably we had the least amount of elk that we've had. It was just sporadic feed conditions. It was the same on there as far as it was. I would say some of the public had better feed. The advantage is that, a lot of things they have more, and they're just unmolested. So, we're not bumping, we're not worried so much about guys bumping elk. And you know how it is when, we always talk about that Sunday lull. We don't usually get the Sunday lull. So it's a lot more consistent. It's just a lot nicer place because, like with any private access area, you just don't have to compete and have the pressure on the animals as well. So the animals act more natural. We hunted a little bit off the ranch and on public. We actually took a bull. Jimmy's son took a bull on public, and he was right off the main road with some cows, and nobody was hunting him. He was a little over 350. JD was the last guy to go to get the hunt, but still, there's a lot of dense. Can be tough in that dense jungle when they're not going. You know what I mean? It just, it just can be darn tough. So it definitely wasn't an advantage for us as it usually is, but there definitely was not the elk on that place that, a lot of people probably thought there was, as we've had in years past, whether it be because of slow rut conditions that we just didn't see all the elk, or or they were huddled in some of the thicker, denser country. But definitely was an advantage, just like the place that you're managing up there, that you don't have the pressure. So they act more natural.
Yeah.
So.
For sure. First question would be, we've talked about the trend in Unit 10, trending up, trending down, trending sideways. We've gone kind of a full circle. You had said, I believe, about a year ago that if things remain the same, that you see a brighter future for Unit 10. What are your thoughts from what you saw this season? I know with the drought year and an antler growth year that's a little bit off. What are your thoughts, though, moving forward?
We're still under that assumption that, it just depends on if the tag numbers stay down. If they start pumping in 100 early rifles and, 700-800 late rifle bull tags and 200 archery elk tags, it's going to go to shit. As far as from a trophy standpoint. If this next year, if we get the proper rain in the winter and spring, could be the best year we've seen in 5-6 years in there. If we don't, it could be, still could be good, but it's not going to be as good as it could be. And then the following year could be even better. It all depends on that stroke of the pin if they keep the tag numbers down. As far as, from the bull elk standpoint. And I sure hope they do. I sure hope, that they understand that, that's a exceptional unit, just like 9 and some of the other, higher quality management units, the areas that they're supposed to manage for a little bit higher quality, that, that's something that people are looking for. And that it's the right thing to do in management is to harvest or kill older age class, to let these bulls to get to at least 7.5. And I understand you're going to have people that don't. You can't control what the hunters do, but you can control how many tag numbers you have. And if that means increasing the prices, we haven't had a price increase in a long time, then so be it. I sure hope they do, because that's the only way the economics will work out, So I'm still hopeful that 10 and 9 will get the proper rain next year, and they'll keep the tag numbers down, specifically in 10, just because they've dropped them so much. I would like to see, more like 25, 30 on the early rifle. But, 40's dang sure a lot better than 100,
Yeah.
So I'm pumped about that, as long as we try not to get too excited about it, because, regimes change and mentalities change, and, I think at the end of the day that the game fish, they either have to raise prices or they have to increase tags. And it seems like over years past, they'd rather increase tags than increase prices, because they get a little bit of backlash, from the residents. Which, I get it, but on the same token, economics are economics, and you can't change that,
Yeah.
So,
moving forward, you've got antelope hunting, and I assume you've got some late elk hunts. Any hunts out there that you guys still have availabilities, sheep hunts, anything that you want to put out there that if anybody listening has a tag that you're interested, you guys have spots for guiding out there, or are you pretty much full?
Other than, somebody on a prayer calling us up for a sheep hunt over here in 15D and C and 16A, we are full. I mean, we are full. But, I know the sheep hunts they're a privilege to get the guide. So I know that, the chances of that are slim, but I'd always enjoy doing a sheep hunt. And I know Jimmy and Lee would always enjoy jumping in on it as well. So if there's that guy or gal out there that has one of those and needs some help, there's my pitch. So
right on. And
but,
then exclusive or predator exclusives. When do you primarily kick off your predator season with that business?
Well, we'll start doing hunts. I guess the end of this month. We'll start doing hunts now, and then go until March. Primarily just to March. Kind of gets the meat of the season, November through March. But we got guys that, for time frame reasons, will hunt October. Hopefully we get. I haven't even looked at the long term, but I've heard possibilities of El Nino. Hopefully we get a little bit colder winter down here and get some precipitation and get some better fur on these predators, so they look good on the mounts and on the wall, and so I'm excited about that and get a little bit increased activity versus 70, 80 degrees like we had last year throughout the winter. So that kicks off.
Craig, I want you to tell the listeners
October 20th.
I want you to tell the listeners how they can follow along and find out more about you guys.
For big game stuff, Exclusive Pursuit Outfitters, you can, type that in on Instagram or Facebook or on Google. and pull up our website, our Facebook page, and our Instagram pages. It'll come up. And then for predator hunting, you can type in same thing on Instagram, Facebook, and Google, Predator Exclusives, and follow us on those pages. And then my personal pages on Instagram is at Craig Steele AZ, and that's the best way to follow us.
Right on, buddy. Well, thanks for your time, and hope you have a great antelope hunt, and I'll catch up with you later in the season. God bless you, and thanks for all that you do, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Jay.